Meow 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 meow.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is a very special video because there's a book tag that was created that's a very personal book tag, which I really like. So this is a book tag that was created by Andrew from It Came From The Page. Massively recommend you check out his channel. It's fantastic. I'll link his channel below. And he kind of covers a lot of horror fiction, but he's quite... what I like about him is he's not afraid to say what he thinks, even if it's not particularly fashionable idea, or he's like an anti-snob, if you like. He'll say stuff that isn't necessarily showing off how clever he is. He just says what he thinks about books and films, and he's awesome. So It Came From The Page. Check out the channel. And he came up with this tag that's called the Loomis Book Tag, and Loomis is his cat, and it's awesome because this is all about how much he loves his cat and the other cats or animals. I don't know if they're all cats. I think they might be cats. I don't know, but I think previous cats he's had. And Loomis appears in his videos. He just sort of wanders around, jumps on his shoulders and stuff like that. So you do see Loomis in his videos, and it's just a really lovely tag. It's a book tag, so it's nice sort of prompts to initiate us talking about books. And he also asked us to add our own animal at the end. So I have a cat. I've got 2 dogs and a cat. And I think you've seen all 3 in my videos at some point, because I think Rosie, my cat, appeared in my non-fiction video that I did over a year ago. And my dogs have appeared a few times. So yeah, I will mention Rosie at the end. But this is all about Andrew's prompts and Loomis, which is an awesome name for a pet. And I'm assuming Loomis is a reference to some of the... I think Loomis was connected... I think the name Loomis is connected to John Carpenter. But I can't remember why. But I'm pretty sure Loomis is connected to John Carpenter. Anyway, it's 7 prompts, and then I'll tag some people. Or I'll try and remember people that I think might have a pet. I mean, if not, it's a good tag anyway. So here we go. The first prompt is the most chaotic book you can think of. This is the one that's named after Loomis, and clearly he's referencing the fact that Loomis's behaviour can be a little bit chaotic. So the most chaotic book. So I do own this book, but I haven't got time to find it. It's in the loft. So I'm going to do a little picture here. And the book I've chosen is Philip K. Dick's Ubik. So Ubik is a really chaotic, but it's a crazy book. I really like it, but it took me a while to like it. I about 50 pages in, it started becoming more compelling, and then about 80 pages in, I started getting really interested, and it started just getting more and more rewarding. And basically, I think that, if you've read any Philip K. Dick, he does do these trippy scenarios, and you go into a book of his knowing that he's going to take you somewhere which may not seem very linear or sensible or well explained straight away. And there's that kind of unreality in a lot of what he does, and there's loads of that in Ubik. I mean, Ubik is full of it. I think it's my favourite book I've read by him. I've read about 5 of his books, and it's my favourite book I've read by him. In December, I was going to read loads of Philip K. Dick, and I've still got loads to read. But Ubik I read a while ago, and it's a really good book. It's about a guy called Joe who works for a company who can be employed to reduce psychic ability in people, and him and a bunch of other people from his company get hired by this business corporation to work on the moon, I think it is. And anyway, they end up getting involved in this big bomb explosion. It's a big trap, and the idea that they're all going to get killed, and he's not killed, and through something else that happens in the plot, his reality is shifted a number of times, and it's not massively signposted. So as a reader, you're kind of seeing the reality change a lot. And this can of Ubik keeps coming into it, and the definition of what Ubik is changes through the book, and it kind of gets clearer what it is as you're reading it. And it is definitely quite chaotic, but in a really creative and interesting and eventually compelling way. So yeah, Ubik from Philip K. Dick is what I'm choosing for that prompt. The second prompt is Nami, the pet name Nami, and clearly a very lucky pet because the prompt is the luckiest book you've ever found. And again, if you've seen my channel before, you know that I collect cartoonist books, and I particularly collect books by Charles Addams. And Charles Addams, his stuff is really hard to get, really hard to get. And I don't know what it's like in America, but certainly over here it's really hard to find it. It's very rare to find it in the wild. And even on eBay, they're massively expensive. I've got most of his books now, but there's still some I haven't just never been able to get, or they're just crazy money, over £100, you know, for a book, that kind of thing, £150, £200. But now and again, something magical happens. And this is an example, Creature Comforts by Charles Addams. This is an example of a situation where I found it in a second-hand bookshop. I couldn't believe it. And clearly, he thought it was valuable because everything in the book in the shop was like a couple of quid, and he charged £12 for this one, as you can see in the corner there. But it's fantastic condition, and that's pretty cheap, I think. I mean, I wasn't expecting to spend that £12 when we just randomly found this shop and we went in there, but I had to get it. So that was a really lucky find, and it's one of my favourite finds I've found in the wild as a surprise thing. So Charles Addams, Creature Comforts. I might go through all of my Charles Addams books at some point. But that's my answer to the second prompt. The third prompt, the pet name is Wisteria, and it's basically the best book you can think of that's best to snuggle up with. So a comfort read, a cozy read. So actually what I've chosen for this, I've got the 8th one in this series, and I just find when I go into this series, it is a comfort read. It is a familiar situation, familiar scenario in a lot of ways. Certainly the setting and the characters and the tone of it is very familiar, because I'm now on the 8th book and I've enjoyed every single one of them. There was a moment where the overall arc went into a strange place where the author did something with 2 of the characters and clearly decided that they didn't like what they did, and they kind of reversed it a little bit, retconned it in the next book. But I do like these books a lot, and that is the Chronicles of St. Mary's by Jodie Taylor. So I mentioned this series in the first book I did on time travel. This is all about historians that go back in time to record what exactly happened in these historical moments. So they never take objects, they never take people, they never leave the intention is they never leave something behind that could upset the timeline, but they go back so they can see what actually happened, and adventures ensue, and there's a lot of humor in it. And Max, the main character, I think is really endearing, and she goes through quite a lot of changes through it. So this is book 8, which is And the Rest is History. A lot of the titles are really good because most of the titles are some play on words on some phrases that we use a lot. There we go. And the Rest is History. Jodie Taylor's Chronicles of St. Mary's, a really good series, and for me that's a really good comfort read, and I ought to get back into the series as well. So prompt number 4 is Claude, and it's name a book that has the best adventure. So clearly Claude probably disappeared a lot and went around. I had a cat like that once, and we didn't see him for ages. So the best adventure, I'm choosing Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. So if you know this book, you know that what starts off as a very domestic situation where Arthur Dent is trying to stop the council from knocking his house down. It starts off like that. It's a very real, down-to-earth situation. And his friend turns up, Ford Prefect, who he's just always thought was just his mate, Ford Prefect. And Ford Prefect tells him that he's an alien, and don't worry about your house because the whole earth is going to get demolished soon. But come with me, I'll save you because you're my mate, so I'll save you, and we'll go on an adventure around the galaxy, and we'll use the Hitchhiker's Guide to help us out to figure out where we're going and all that. So that's the basic premise of the book. It's a fantastic book. It literally is one of the greatest books ever, and I think universally loved. I've never seen anybody actually say on this beautiful thing we call YouTube say anything negative about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is quite cool, because quite rightly it's brilliant. And yeah, this is the one I'm picking for the Great Adventure, because Arthur Dent goes on the adventure of a lifetime. Number 5, Jughead. Amazing name for a cat. Jughead. And the prompt is a book that you love but no longer own. Okay, so for that one, it's a book that I think I don't any longer own because I can't find it. And I've been looking for it for, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 years. So I've just kind of given up looking for it now. So, and I do love the book. So it's The Killing Joke by Alan Moore and Brian Bolland's very famous cover. And I do really like that book. It's quite an important book for me as well, because I didn't really read graphic novels until I read that, and then so it was the first kind of time I used to read comics when I was little, but that's obviously quite a different thing because it's so adult and it's so in your face, and it's so jarring and visceral and shocking. So it was a very different experience. So it was quite an important moment. I read it when I was a teenager. It's quite an important moment going, oh, this can happen in these kind of illustrative stories. So, yeah, The Killing Joke, I can't find it. I don't think I own it anymore. Don't know why. I might have lent it out and never got it back. That seems to be the most likely reason why I cannot find it, but I've looked everywhere. So there we go. The Killing Joke by Alan Moore. The number 6 is Venus, the most optimistic book you've read. So, the most optimistic book I've read. Clearly not this one. So, yeah, for the most optimistic book I own or have read, and I'm going to go with it. I love this book so much, but again, it's up in the loft. I haven't got a chance to get it in a minute before doing this, so I'm going with Andy Weir's The Martian. Andy Weir's The Martian is a fantastic book. It's easily one of the best books I've ever read. Not everyone loves it, apparently. I mean, I've seen a lot of positive stuff about it. Obviously, it's very successful, very popular. But there are some people on BookTube that think it's like, they call it entry-level science fiction, and they call it very simple, and they're really quite patronising about it. But it is a great book, and, you know, I think Andy Weir is a really good writer. Really, Mark Watney is the main character in the book. And in case you don't know, through an accident in a manned space flight to Mars, he ends up stranded there, and he has to try and stay alive while they rescue him, basically, while they try and rescue him. And you know, Mark Watney is a really real, likable, fully rounded character, brilliantly written. Andy Weir did a lot of research about what are the realities of the physics and the biology on what we know about Mars. That is it feasible that you might have been able to survive, and all that kind of things explored. And it's just a really thrilling book. I think I haven't done a particular review of it on here, like a single book review of it on here. But I have mentioned before that when I did read it, I had already seen the film, and I didn't think it was worth me reading. I thought, well, I know the plot, there's no point. And then just because everyone was raving about how great it was and how funny it was, I thought, well, I'll read it. I'll see what it's like. And if it's not really doing anything for me because I know the film so well, I'll just leave it. And what is so interesting about my reading experience of it, and I think about the book, is despite the fact I knew every single plot point, because the film followed the book really well, it didn't matter. It was still an extremely enjoyable read because of how well it's written. So, The Martian is an extremely optimistic book because he's got to keep going, believing that at some point he will be rescued. So, yeah, it's a fantastic story. And, you know, I've even heard some people dismiss it as derivative. And it's like, well, if you're going to, you know, hone down on that sort of thing as being derivative, you're going to be calling everything derivative. Because, yeah, clearly being stranded somewhere, hoping you're going to get rescued, has a derivative element. But it was pretty an interesting take on that thing where he's thinking, okay, what would you be able to do in what we understand about science now on Mars? I think it's cool. So there we go. That's my take on that prompt, the Venus prompt. Ironically, about Mars, definitely couldn't survive on Venus. That's a crazy planet, and a planet I've been fascinated by since I was a kid, actually, Venus. And then number 7 is when Andrew said, pick your own pet and use the influence from that. So, as I've said before at the beginning of this video, Rosie, my cat, is a nutcase. She's absolutely, she's beautiful. I'll show you now that she's beautiful. And as you can see, she looks like very innocent. She wouldn't harm anybody. But now and again, she just suddenly flares up out of nowhere, and she'll just, well, she doesn't really do it to me, but she definitely scratches my wife. And we don't know when it's coming. We don't know where it's coming from. We don't know why she does it. She's quite old now. Apparently old cats do sometimes start doing that. And it is a relatively recent thing. So it's only in the last couple of years, but she's quite old now. But because of that sort of strange elemental behaviour from Rosie, my Rosie prompt is find a book that surprised you. So what I'm doing for that one, this is a book that had a huge impact on me when I was at school. So this would have been when I was about 12. I think we read this in school. We studied it in English when I was 12, and it blew me away. But it also really hugely expanded my imagination. I think it's such an interesting book and a very powerful read, and hugely surprising because I didn't know what was going to happen next, and I didn't know there was anything like that in literature. So I'm talking about The Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, and it's a very famous book, quite rightly, and I think a lot of people that might be familiar with the bad luck of killing an albatross might be familiar with it because of this story, although obviously the story uses it because it is a genuine superstition that sailors held. But it's just such a great story, and it's really vividly written, and I've always thought there should be a major crazy film made of it, but which you could do nowadays. But Rime of the Ancient Mariner really surprised me when I was about 12 and really helped me out on my journey into fantasy, horror, all that stuff. So there we go. So that's my response to the Loomis Book Tag. It's a really lovely book tag made by Andrew from It Came From the Page. Check out his channel. There's a few other people that have done it as well, and I'll try and find some others and link them below as well. But yeah, let me know what you think of those books and those experiences, if you can relate to any of that. Okay, I'm going to tag some people. I haven't tagged anyone yet, so this is a little tail end of the video. I need to tag some people. I'm going to tag Michael Romeo Talks Books, Chris from Unlimited Reads, MJ from Reading This Life, Jax from Spread Book Joy, Courtney from Tangible Reads, Aaron Facer, and Mason in the Dark. Mason from Mason in the Dark. And Pax Panic. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye.